computer. All right. Well, welcome everybody. What I'm going to do to begin with is just do a little bit of a review of chapter 6 and 7, and then how it all relates to chapter 8. And of course, I was looking at everything through the eyes of Sienna, who owns Sienna's health and fitness store. And of course, we looked in chapter 6 at percents. We looked at chapter 7 at trade and cash discounts. And percents really are everything with business. I mean, everything is done in percents. You know, we look at the comparison of 2 years, we find the difference in percent. We look at all of our sales, but we want to find the percentage of a certain item. So those are all very relevant, and everything is calculated in percents. And so it's very important for you to understand how percents worked. And hopefully you got a good grasp of that. I might do a quick review of that here in a second. Secondly was trade and cash discounts. And this is when you, as a retailer, in this case, Sienna, are purchasing items from a wholesaler or even from the manufacturer. Of course, the manufacturer is not going to charge you, or the wholesaler is not going to charge you full retail price. They're going to give you a discount. So that way you can in turn mark it up and make money off of it. And that's how businesses work. And so, companies offer, manufacturers offer, wholesalers offer what's called trade discounts. That's basically just a percentage discount on your entire order, especially if you buy in bulk, or they give you a cash discount if you pay off early. Any kind of credit terms they might offer you, they'll give you an additional cash discount. And so those are relevant because now this week, as we come into markups, especially the first few sections of chapter 8, we're going to be taking that price that Sienna got her items at after they took off of, their trade discount. Now that's her cost. She's going to add to that a percentage of markup in order for herself and her business to make money. And so we need to calculate things like how much was the markup? What was the percentage of the markup? What's now the selling price of the item that she got? So it's kind of cost, markup, and then selling price. And we'll be looking at that when we get to chapter 8 here in a minute. But what I wanted to do to start with is I just want to do a little review of this whole idea of percents. And my pen is not working, so let me figure out why. Hold on. I think I need to plug it in. And then it should work. Give me a second. I apologize. And why is it not working? Oh, the app is locked up. So let me try again. All right. Let me pause my recording for. I'm going to resume recording. So we're going to talk about chapter 6, and we're going to just talk about percents. So again, as I mentioned, everything in business is done in percents. And so just to kind of look at it from the standpoint of a whole, and we call this 100%. And percents are typically, you start with 100%. That would be what we were calling our base. And then let's just say we take a chunk off of that. We're wondering, what is this percentage? What is this amount? So we would have an amount or a percent of difference. So, and then of course we have what's left over. So typically when we purchase something like on trade and cash discounts, for instance, we had the list price that represented 100%. And then Sienna was given a discounted amount, basically a percentage. So we could say, let's just say to make it easy, it was 25% discount off of her total order. And that's great. So she got a 25% discount off 100%. So let's just say to make it easy, it was $100 for the items she bought. She got a 25% discount, so she got it for $75, right? That's the percent was, and then what was the percent? 25%. And then that would then leave you with what we would call, rather than your base, what's left is what we'd call the net price. That's what she got it for at the end of the day, right? So this would be called list price, net price, and then the discount amount. Now, I tried to illustrate that in that formula. It looked like this, and you multiplied here, you divided here, and this would be what we call the portion, or in this case, the markup amount in dollars. And then this would be the base or list price. And then this would have been the rate, like what was the percentage rate. And this can be used for figuring out any portion of any percent. So that's what we used it for chapter 6 a little bit, and just trying to find the portion. So hopefully you understood how the portion formula worked. We're just trying to find what portion of this 100%, this list price in this case, what portion is that in percentage, what portion is that in amount, and that would be the formula that you would use for that. Now, this is also true when it comes to comparing two items. So let's just say that you have two items. This is sales, total sales in 2020, and this is total sales 2021. And so again, each one of these represents 100%. And so in order to find the percentage of differences, you need to find first the amount of difference. So again, if this was 100 and this was 125, we would subtract the 125 from the 100. And of course, we saw an increase. That would equal 25. And then that 25 now becomes your portion. And that portion would be divided by the original amount. So in this case, it was 100. And so we're going to be able to determine what the percentage rate is based off of that. And then that difference would show you the difference between that year 2020 and the next year 2021. In this case, it was an increase in the amount of percentage. So, and again, we could use the portion formula to do that. So I'll just pull this up here. Again, the portion was 25. The original amount in this case was 100, because we're going to always go with the first year we started. And if we divide those two together, that's going to give us our rate. I'm not going to do the math. I'm just trying to conceptually show you how this works. All right, so that was chapter 6, just trying to figure out percentages. And then as we came to chapter 7, again, we were looking at 100% being the list price. That's what the retailer wanted to, that's what the manufacturer normally sells it for. But again, they gave her a 25% discount. And so that was her discount amount. And then what remains is what she paid, right? Actually her cost, or in this case, it would be her net price. That would be the remaining amount. Now, just so you know, if it was 100% to begin with, and 25% of the whatever that value was the discount amount, then you always know the opposite of that 25%, in this case, 75%, is always going to lead you to the list price. So again, if I use my portion formula and I put here my 100%, my base, and I multiply that by the amount of discount that she's going to get, 25%, that's going to lead to my discount amount or portion, right? So again, if it was $100 my base, I get a 25% discount, then that means my portion at the 25 was a $25 discount. Simple enough. However, I can also use the net price. I call it the net price formula. So that would be where there's 100%. And in this case, it's going to be the net price. And again, this represents the base. So if I'm trying to find the net price, if the net price is the opposite of percentage of what was discounted, then it would be 0.75 or 1 minus 0.25. And if I divide the net price, or divide this net price by the 75%, I would get my base where I started. And so it kind of goes both ways. Or if I multiplied this 100, whatever it is, $100 times 0.75, it's going to give me what? $75. That's what my net price is. So by subtracting the complement or subtracting the discounted percent or rate, I get the net price, net rate, and I can multiply that. I can divide that, and I'll find all three, or as long as I have two, I'll find the other three. So that's kind of how the percentages, when it came to using this formula, I wanted to make sure you understood that before I moved into this week, because this week we start getting into chapter 8. And I'll be showing you some screens here in a minute, but chapter 8, and we're going to be looking at a very similar formula in the first part of chapter 8, where instead of it using list price, we're going to use cost, we're going to use rate, and then we're going to use a markup amount. Right? So we're going to do cost, rate, and then markup amount. So we want to find how much of a markup that we're going to include in that. So if I had $200 as my cost, I bought it for $200 and I want to mark it up by 25%, then my markup amount would be whatever the result of that is. And I wasn't ready to do any math yet, but let me just do it real quick. I should know it offhand, but I don't want to guess because I always make mistakes. So 0.25 equals $50. So it's a $50 markup. So if I looked at the formula like I did before, it's a $50 markup. Simple enough. If I can do any three functions, whether trying to find the base, trying to find the rate, or trying to find the discount amount by using that formula in the same way. So if I have the discount, the markup amount, and I have the rate, I can figure out how much of a markup percentage I got. Again, just like we showed you with the net price, you can also do it this way where you have now the selling price. Sorry for my poor writing. You have your $200 base. And in this case, you have 1 plus 0.25. Again, because you're going to be adding the 200 into the answer by adding the 1. So 1 times 200 times 1 is what? 200 plus the percentage of markup. So 25%. So ultimately we know if we add the markup here to the amount here, it would be $250, right? Well, in the same way, if I just do the math here, 200 times 1 plus 0.25, so 1.25, my answer is going to be $250. So just all I did was remove having to do that extra math. And this is what we call the cost plus 1 formula. And we'll be using that a lot in chapter 8. And so I just wanted to go over kind of the place of these formulas. And again, the purpose of markups is to take what you've purchased an item for, which we call list price, and then, net price, which you actually got it for after all your discounts. And now we're bringing that over into chapter 8 and calling that the cost. So what did it cost you? So for instance, I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm going to go ahead and open up one of my emails here, and I'm going to use the example that I wanted to show you guys is we're going to use Sienna here to just kind of go over this real quick. So if I use Sienna, so you guys can see her squat rack. If you guys remember from last week in chapter 7, we said that she was purchasing these squat racks. I think she was at the conference, and I think they were $449.95 by her normal A1 equipment that she was buying those from. And but then they offered her a discount, and I think after the discount it was like $292 something. So I'm just going to use $292 as that was her price. After her trade discount, her cost was $292. So that's what she actually paid for the squat racks. Now she wants to resell those squat racks and make money off of them, and that's the whole goal, right? So if you figure out that $292 is her cost, and now that represents 100%, she wants to mark them up. So let's call that markup by a certain percentage, which also will result in a amount, dollar-wise, right? And so that's the goal of markups, is we want to be able to mark it up. So we want to be able to know, well, if I want to mark it up, I can only sell them for $300 or $350 maximum. That's the most I could probably sell it for. Well, people will still buy it, but I paid $292. So then the question comes, well, what rate do I need to? What rate am I getting? How much percentage of an increase am I getting by selling it for that price? And so this is what we're going to be working on in chapter 8. And I'm going to be coming back to that in a minute because I'm going to be opening some other screens. But I wanted you to see how the markups worked as we move into chapter 8. So I'm going to